So, why is our world so unequal? It's a huge question, one you probably think about when you see the news or even just walk around your city. In this explainer, we're going to dig into the very roots of social inequality and maybe, just maybe, challenge some of the stories we all tell ourselves about why the world is the way it is. Okay, let's get into it. Sometimes the biggest gaps between people aren't oceans or continents. They're right there, literally side by side. The whole story of global inequality can sometimes be seen in a single glance. I mean, just look at this picture. In the foreground, you have local Haitian fishermen in a simple boat doing what they've done for generations. And in the background, this enormous floating luxury resort. Two completely different worlds sharing the exact same piece of ocean. It just forces you to ask, how did we get here? How did our world get carved up like this? Is any of this natural? To try and answer a question that big, we usually have a go-to list of explanations, right? We have a standard set of words we use to put people into boxes and make sense of the hierarchies we see all around us. Gender, class, caste, race, yup, these are the big ones. We tend to look at these categories as fundamental, almost like they're baked into our DNA. We see them as permanent, solid things that explain who gets what and why. But, and this is a really big but, this is where we're going to take a sharp turn. The whole field of anthropology asks us to hit the pause button and consider that maybe these categories aren't fixed realities at all. Maybe there's something else entirely. Seriously, just think about that for a second. What if the very ideas we use to build our societies, gender, race, class, aren't actually rooted in biology or some deep, unchanging truth? What if they're just something we made up? And boom, there it is. This is the absolute core idea we're exploring today. Every single one of those labels is a cultural invention. They're powerful stories we tell, powerful tools we use to draw lines in the sand between us and them. They feel so incredibly real because we build our laws, our economies, our entire societies around them, not because they exist in nature. Okay, so that's a pretty huge claim, I know. So let's not just take it as a given. Let's actually put this idea to the test. We're going to take those usual suspects, one by one, and see just how much they really are a product of culture. So let's start with gender. What's so fascinating about this anthropological definition is what it doesn't talk about, biology. It's not about men and women. It's about how we use the ideas of male and female, all that sexual imagery, to organize, well, everything. It's a way to give meaning to all of our social relationships. And this isn't just an abstract theory, not at all. It has very real, very personal consequences. Just listen to Blundine's words here. Her anger isn't just about a second wife. It's about respect. It's about power. It's about the unwritten rules of her marriage being broken. It shows just how deeply these cultural rules about gender shape our lives. And these ideas can be and have been weaponized. Research from Anne Stoller on Dutch colonizers is a powerful example. They didn't just conquer land. They systematically portrayed indigenous men as feminine or less than men. Why? Because it was a way to justify taking their land, controlling their women, and ultimately dominating their entire society. It was gender used as a tool of colonial rule. Okay, next up, let's talk about class. On the surface, it seems simple enough. It's a ranking system, right? Based on money, your job, economic stuff, a ladder that people are on. Well, it turns out even the idea of class is a cultural story. Think about it. In the United States, the big national myth is the American dream, the idea that class is flexible, that anyone can climb the ladder. But compare that to a more traditional European view, where class is seen as much more rigid, something you're born into, with deep roots in a feudal past. The very definition changes depending on the story a culture tells itself. But whatever the cultural story is, the physical reality of class difference can be absolutely shocking. This image from Caracas, Venezuela says it all. You have these gleaming luxury towers right next to sprawling slums. It's a brutal visual reminder of how these economic hierarchies get literally built into the world around us. All right, now let's tackle caste. And if you're going to remember one word here, it's closed. That's the key difference. A caste is a rank you are born into. And in a pure caste system, there's no moving out. Your social position is decided at birth, for life. And while many of us immediately think of India when we hear the word caste, these kinds of closed systems have existed in many places. This is Tome Kawasaki. She's part of Japan's Baraku community, a group that for centuries has been discriminated against because their ancestors had jobs that were considered unclean or polluting. And her story is just incredible. For her, learning about this identity that was supposed to be a source of shame, it became a source of connection and wonder. She completely reclaimed it. It just goes to show how people can challenge and even transform the meaning of these categories that are forced upon them. And even when we do look at India, the idea of caste is way more complex than we often think. You have the Varna, which is the big, theoretical, four-part model you might read about in ancient texts. But in the reality of daily village life, the thing that really matters is your jati, one of the hundreds of smaller, local groups that determines who you can marry and interact with. And what's the logic holding it all together? A powerful ideology of purity and pollution. Occupations, like the sanitation work you see here, are ranked. Some are seen as spiritually polluting, and that pollution is believed to pass to the people who do the work, locking them into a low social status. And this pattern of branding a group of people as other, as somehow separate and excluded, is sadly a global one. Just look at the long, tragic history of persecution against the Roma people in Europe. It has all the hallmarks of a caste-like system: inherited status, deep social segregation, and exclusion that's been enforced for centuries. So, as we've walked through all these examples, from gender to class to caste, a really clear pattern starts to show up. These divisions, these hierarchies that feel so solid and so permanent, they aren't facts of nature. They're structures that we, as human beings, have built. So let's just boil it all down. What are the big takeaways here? First, social inequality is not natural. It is not inevitable. Second, our most basic categories, gender, class, caste, race, they are all powerful cultural inventions. Third, and this is the really clever part, these systems are almost always justified by claiming they're based in nature or biology. And that leads us to the most important and honestly the most hopeful point of all. Because we built them, we can challenge them, we can change them, we can even tear them down. And that brings us to racism, which is maybe the most dangerous and destructive outcome of this whole process. Look at the definition. It is oppression based on a socially defined category of race, a category that has absolutely no basis in biology. And how is it always justified? With the lie of biological superiority. It's the perfect and most devastating example of mistaking a cultural invention for a fact of nature. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If these things that we see as the absolute bedrock of our society, our ideas about race, gender, and class, if they are all just powerful stories that we've agreed to tell ourselves, what other fundamental truths about our world are we just taking for granted? What else is just a story waiting to be unpacked?